Welcome to AM Prime. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you. It's the first day of the new month. We are so thankful for life, thankful to be here, and we're going to make the most of this March. As we did yesterday, our inspiration moment is coming up, and we want to talk about loving ourselves and treating ourselves with just as much care as we treat others. So today's inspirational quote comes from Brené Brown, and it says, "Talk to yourself like someone you love." And we know we would talk to our loved ones, our friends, our family in soft tones. We'll be forgiving with them. We'd care about them. But somehow, sometimes we are really harsh with ourselves. We argue with ourselves. We make a mistake and we fault ourselves and think it's the end of the world, and we treat ourselves so harsh. But today, the 1st of March, I'm asking us to make a pledge to ourselves for this month. Treat ourselves better. Talk to ourselves kinder. Be a little gentler with ourselves. I think that's going to help us go a really, really long way. We have an exciting program packed for you today, a lot of informative interviews, including our next one, but we're going to take a quick break and come back with more. See you on the other side.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola.
Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you do in our country.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Right, so our first interview. Over 90 nationals of Trinidad and Tobago, including at least 56 children, are unlawfully detained in life-threatening conditions as Islamic State ISIS suspects and family members in northeast Syria. The Human Rights Watch is saying that the government of Trinidad and Tobago has taken almost no action to help them return, even as countries including the United States and Barbados repatriate their own nationals. Here to expound more on this is Letta Taylor, Associate Crisis and Conflict Director of Human Rights Watch, and Joe Becker, Children's Rights Advocacy Director of the Human Rights Watch Group. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks, Dominique.
Okay.
It's an honor to be here.
Right, great. So we're really happy to have you here because we want to talk more on this. I mean, we saw that you had a media conference yesterday. We've seen the post on Facebook, and we want to find out more on this. So I think my first question to you, for us who aren't familiar with your organization, is to tell us a bit about your organization, the work that you've been involved in.
Of course. Human Rights Watch is an international non-governmental organization. We document human rights situations in more than 100 countries worldwide. And we try to push policymakers and decision makers to take action to better protect and promote human rights. This is our first visit to Trinidad and Tobago, and we're very pleased to be here. But we are concerned about the scores of Trinidadians that are detained in northeast Syria and have come to try and push the government to take stronger action.
Okay. When did your group first learn of this, of the nationals in Syria? And how have you been able to, I guess, make contact with them? If there's a representative there that you speak to, how did this come about?
Yes, I thank you for this question. I've been going to the camps and prisons in northeast Syria, holding ISIS suspects and family members since 2019 and been working on this topic since at least 2018. And in my visits to the camps and prisons in northeast Syria, I met some of these Trinidadians, and I was very surprised to see nationals of Trinidad and Tobago in these camps and prisons, and wanted to find out more about it. And in my last visit to northeast Syria in 2022, I again had the opportunity to meet some Trinidadians, including some children and a woman who I had met on my first visit to these camps and prisons in 2019. And one thing I really noticed was how the level of despair among these Trinis has increased over the years. Their sense of hopelessness, knowing that their detention, their unlawful detention, is indefinite. Let's not forget that none of these Trinis has yet been charged with any crime, much less even had access to a court, and that makes their detention unlawful in addition to unconscionable.
Because my next question to you was going to be, what is the state that they're in, not just their mindset, but physically, in terms of the camps? You said you've been there physically. So give us an insight to how that setup is. What are they going through at this point?
Yes, these camps are horrific. Women and children are living in tents that blow over in the wind and flood during rainstorms and catch fire from cooking fuel and heating fuel. Children have rocks to play with. The water is often contaminated and often in short supply. Fresh fruit is a luxury and can only be bought in the market for those lucky enough to make a little money cleaning other tents or maybe getting a little money from family members. Almost no medical care. Several Trinis who we've spoken with or their family members back here have described horrific situations of children needing surgery or advanced medical care, adults also, and not being able to get it.
Wow. You said that, if those persons who are there can go to the market and get fruit. So is it that they're bound to these camps? How does it work? Are they bound to this space? Can they still move around? You said that they're in contact with their families. Also in terms of their mindsets, being there and then their families being here and not being able to physically help them in any way. Talk about that as well too.
Okay, so the camps are locked. These are not rehabilitation camps. These are not refugee camps. These are detention camps. They're heavily guarded. People cannot come and go. People cannot even go to the medical clinic without permission. And I'm speaking about the women and children. Of course, the men are in even worse conditions. There are highly restricted communications allowed with family members on an administrative phone, but this only happened more recently, and even those communications are extremely short. They're usually a text back and forth and not even lifetime contact.
Right.
Many detainees do have phones, but that's against, and I'm speaking generally, I'm not speaking Trinidadian specifically, but that's actually not allowed. And I've spoken with detainees who've been brought in and interrogated for hours because they had a phone, and the authorities said that they were not allowed to use it. We didn't even talk about medical care, but perhaps when Jo speaks, she can talk about that because I'm sorry about the deaths and the violence in the camp, and a lot of that's affected children. So perhaps we'll have a moment to discuss that later as well.
Yes, because I want to find out as well too. Two more questions on this, and then we'll get the call to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. But these nationals that are in Syria in this camp, they're not isolated from other prisons in the detention camp. So they're mixing with other prisons. I'm asking if they are separate or they are also with other prisons there.
Well, there are foreigners from 60 different nationalities. We're talking about a massive detention crisis, 42,000 foreigners from 60 different countries, most of whom are children. And that's the case with the Trinis as well. Of course, the majority of these Trinis are children who never chose to live under ISIS or be born in Syria. So everyone who is an ISIS suspect or family member is held together if they're women and children in the camps, or generally in separate wards of prisons. But some of these prisons are also for hardcore Syrian men convicted of terrorism. And that's the case for several boys, including some older Trini youths who are, say, 18, 19, who I spoke to one Trini boy. He was held in a cell with 30 other older boys and young men. He and other boys told me they spend 23 hours a day in this cell that's barely large enough for each of them to have their own little mattress on the floor. And they spend 1 hour a day outside in a courtyard that's not even large enough for all of them to play. And for weeks, they told me before I spoke with them, they didn't even have a football to play with. So these are very, very serious detention conditions for people who've never even been charged with a crime.
Right, and that's why I asked that question. Jo, could you tell us in terms of, the interaction with these persons who may have been there, as you said, hardcore, Syrian, criminals or anything of that nature? Tell us about the conditions you mentioned earlier, the war that could be going on inside there.
Okay. Well, I think one thing that Letta highlighted is that these camps and the prisons are increasingly violent. There are still ISIS loyalists who are active in the camps that are carrying out assaults and attacks on fellow detainees, on camp guards, on humanitarian workers. And a few months ago, there was an ISIS attack on one of the prisons where several hundred prisoners were killed. And so every day that these Trinis stay in these camps and detention facilities is another day when their lives are really in danger. There are hundreds of children that have died in recent years because of preventable illnesses, malnutrition, and hypothermia. And there was a case just a few months ago of two 15-year-old girls from Egypt that were found killed after being sexually assaulted. Some of the Trini mothers or who have expressed fear about, their boys being taken away, their girls being sexually assaulted, and saying that they're afraid to even let their children leave their tents. So, this is one of the reasons why we believe it's important for the government to act as soon as possible to bring the Trini nationals home.
Yeah. In terms of your organization and the call to the government to get these nationals home, what have been your attempts in meeting with government officials? Have there been any consultations, any conversations? And what could be the issue that's holding back the government from taking action on this matter?
We reached out to the Minister of National Security in December of last year to let him know that we were looking at the situation, that we were concerned about the situation of Trinis in the camps and detention facilities in Northeast Syria, and asked for information about what the government's policies were towards repatriation of its nationals, what information it had about the number of Trinis that were detained, and what was the timetable to bring them back home. Unfortunately, we did not receive a response to that letter, even though we sent several follow-ups extending the deadline for a reply. We wanted to hear from the government so that we could reflect any government actions in our report. Then on February 1st, about 4 weeks ago, we reached out again to the Minister of National Security, the Attorney General, and the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, letting them know that we were coming to Port of Spain and that we would really welcome the opportunity to sit down in person to discuss the situation of the Trini nationals in the camps and an avenue to bring them home. We're really seeking a constructive engagement with the government, and to date we have not been able to meet, but we still welcome that opportunity. And one thing that's really important to note is that, of the 60 countries that are represented among the detainees, there are more than half, 37 countries, have already brought some or many of their nationals home. This includes the United States, Germany, Barbados, France, and other countries. Over 6,000 nationals have been taken back home to their home countries. And I did a study last year on the children and found that many of the children who have returned home are actually reintegrating surprisingly well. And so we know that it's possible to reintegrate these nationals. And one thing that one of the family members told me here in Trinidad and Tobago is that the Trini children in the camps, they see children of other nationalities leaving and going home, and they're becoming increasingly depressed, saying, when is it our turn? When are we going to be able to go home?
Right. Based on your expertise, and you said so much just now that I want to unpack, based on your expertise, what is the process for repatriating these nationals like? Because you said other countries, including Barbados, would have done it. What is that process? Is that a simple process? What would it take to get that done?
It's a simple process and a complex process. I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is that the U.S. government has military bases in Northeast Syria. It's allied with the forces, the local forces who are detaining these Trinis and other foreigners there, and it has offered to Trinidad and many other countries to help them extract their nationals from Northeast Syria, and indeed the U.S. has done this in many cases. Other countries that have also repatriated have assisted many countries who are repatriating for the first time. The detaining authorities themselves have urged countries to repatriate, saying that this is a burden, that this detention crisis is a burden that they just can't shoulder. This is a war zone, and they're busy fighting a war. And they have these detainees on top of that, and there is a risk that they could escape. So in terms of the process itself, some detainees are flown out, others are escorted to the border of the Kurdistan region of Iraq, which is it's less than an hour's drive from where most of these Trinis are held on a relatively safe road. I've traveled it many times. And from there are also allies who can pick up Trinis on that side, take them to an air base, or take them to a secure facility, including a U.S. military base or other military base, for processing, and then put them on a plane and send them home.
Right. In cases such as this, what happens when nationals are brought home? What would that rehabilitation, reintegration to society, or even prosecution of the adults look like?
Maybe I can start by talking about the children, because that's the majority of the Trinis there.
Yes.
We've seen in other countries that what happens when children come home is that they meet with social workers to find out what are their medical needs, what are their educational needs, where will they be able to live, do they have extended family that are able to care for them. And we know that here in Trinidad and Tobago, there's an extended family network that is ready and willing to help with the resettlement of these children. So what we've seen in other countries is that children are taken back into school as soon as possible so that they can, resume their studies. And in fact, many of them catch up quite quickly to their peers. And social workers will visit periodically to check in on the families and the children to see how they're doing and, make sure that they receive any additional services that are required.
Right.
For the adults, it's a little bit more complicated. Different countries have taken different approaches. One thing we really advocate is family unity. These children have been through a very difficult time. So if they can stay with their mothers, that's almost always in their best interest. So we've been really encouraging countries to return children together with their mothers.
Okay.
Some countries have, allowed mothers to, live with their children in the community, sometimes under law enforcement monitoring if there are security concerns. There are a number of countries that have prosecuted women who have returned for their association with ISIS or other ISIS-related crimes.
Okay.
And that's an option here in Trinidad as well. And Human Rights Watch does advocate for accountability. If there are adults who have committed serious crimes, we do believe that they should be prosecuted.
Okay. And the final question, you're here on the ground. You said to date that there has been no response from the government, from the minister that you'd have reached out to. You had your media briefing yesterday, and I know that you're doing your media tour really to get public awareness to this matter. What is the plan of action next? To get the government to respond, to get some sort of something. What is next?
Well, our invitation is an open one. We're ready to meet with the government at any time, and we've let them know that if our short visit to Port of Spain is inconvenient, we'd be happy to meet through a video call to discuss our research and discuss an avenue to bring the Trinis home. So that's an open invitation, and we continue to hope that we can have constructive engagement.
Okay. I want to thank you both so much for joining us this morning and really, giving us an insight into this matter. And, we hope that there is some resolve that comes out of this as soon as possible. Thank you for joining us. We'll take a short break.
For having us.
No problem. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with more.
Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission advises that it is now a criminal offense to operate, advertise, participate, or invite persons to join a prohibited scheme such as Ponzi and pyramid-type financial arrangements. You can now be fined up to $10 million or face 10 years in prison. Visit our website for more information.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this is screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
In recent times, at least within the last 2 to 3 months, we've seen an increase in drownings being reported. It is quite concerning, and on the line joining us to speak about the issues surrounding these tragedies is Augusta Sylvester, who is the former president of the Lifeguard branch of the National Union of Government and Federated Workers. Augustus, thank you for joining us this morning.
Hi, good morning. Nice to have you.
Hi, morning. Thank you for joining us. So we want to get straight into it. In terms of the drowning deaths that have been reported, can we deem what we are currently experiencing as a spike in drowning-related deaths?
Technically, you can say that because over 10 years, could be 15 years, the lifeguards have been calling for more staff. What you have is an aging group. The majority of the lifeguards now are presently 30 years and over. And for the last 10 years or so, the ministry have not taken on lifeguards. You have lifeguards retiring. You have lifeguards who died. You have lifeguards who got so fed up. Imagine you are a lifeguard leaving a lifeguard job to go and work under the corporation. At the present situation, you have CPEP is more organized than that of the lifeguard service because there is no structure.
Okay. I want to get into that in terms of the issues surrounding the lifeguards and all of that just now. But what I want to find out from you, so in particular, Tyrico Bay, there have been several reports of drownings. Last Friday, it was reported that a 28-year-old Shogunas man drowned at Tyrico Bay. Earlier in February, a 21-year-old got into difficulty in the water and tragically drowned. Is Tyrico Bay one of the beaches that lifeguards are posted at?
Yes. Tyrico is also the lifeguards are also responsible for the Tyrico Beach.
Right.
So, like, for instance, in the north, you would have Maracas Bay, Tyrico, and Las Cuevas.
Okay.
Under the Ministry of National Security.
Okay.
They are responsible for those beaches. The reason they are drowning in Tyrico is because they don't have enough staff to cover both Maracas Bay and Tyrico.
Okay, because that was my next question. So in cases like that, is it that the beach goes without lifeguards, or it's that you spread out the staff so thin to cover both spaces?
I could hardly hear from on your side.
Okay, understood. I was asking if in cases like that where you said that it's understaffed, is it that there are no lifeguards present, or that lifeguards are spread so thin amongst the spaces that the lifeguards have to be posted, so there's not enough staff?
Correct, yes. There is not enough staff.
Okay.
They are short staff.
They're short staff.
Therefore, they cannot cover Tyrico together with Maracas Bay. Example, you have at least 5 to 6 lifeguards manning Maracas Bay on a weekend, which is peak time.
Right.
So 5 or 6 lifeguards at Maracas Bay is insufficient with lack of equipment. Therefore, hence the reason they cannot cover Tyrico.
Right.
Whereas, also what you have is that a 40-year-old cadre you are working on. They have, over the past 40 years, they have worked on the car park at Maracas Bay to increase the car park. So if in 40 years you increase the car park, And you're not increasing it. You're increasing the car park because of the fact that there's more people visiting those areas.
Right.
Therefore, if that is the case, then you need to increase your staff and also with equipment.
Yes, correct. What is some of the challenges? Because I know you mentioned some just now, but talk to us about the challenges that the lifeguards and the organization itself continues to face. And then while you were in office, how did you work towards resolving these issues?
All right, okay. As I was saying, we are working with a 40-year cadre, so it has not been upgraded since 2014.
Right.
So, example, you have 7 posts at Maracas Bay and Tyrico, which is some of the most dangerous beaches that we're facing right now because of the waves and the rip current.
Mm-hmm.
For years, the lifeguards have been asking for staff, and nothing has been done. You have the lifeguard service on a daily paid structure, which the lifeguard holds no common interest with no one in those groups. Therefore, your prime time or peak time, which is on a weekend, because of the daily paid structure, a worker must work just two weekends per the month. On those weekends, you have less staff. So, example, if you have 15 lifeguards during the week, which is at the slow time, come the peak time on weekends, that staff of 15 have to cut in half because the workers are entitled to their day off. And that is something we have been trying to address with the ministry for the last 20 years, but failure to do so.
What is
the other thing is, the lifeguard service were kicked around by these politicians as a political football. So based on the government that is in office, they just take the lifeguards, drop them into a ministry, leave them there. Example, the lifeguard service was transferred to the Ministry of National Security in 2015.
Okay.
And it was just dropped there. There was no attention is being paid to the lifeguard service. The lifeguard service has gone from bad to worse since 2015.
In your view, what is the immediate solution to this situation that's taking place?
The immediate solution, the ministry needs to sit down and talk with the lifeguards, with the representatives, because apparently the supervisors are not putting in those recommendations. And you need to recruit lifeguards with almost immediate effect because they are very short. And it's just a matter of time before you can hear that a lifeguard drowned on one of those beaches.
As you talk about the recruitment of lifeguards, what type of training and what's the process that goes into appointing someone in that role as a lifeguard?
Right. A lifeguard job is not an attractive one. First, because of the low pay. 2, because there is no structure. A lifeguard, for instance, the ministry takes on the training of lifeguards. At least the lifeguard should be able to, because of the time frame, a lifeguard must be able to swim at least 100 meters before he could start that training. So that training would take 5 to 6 months. It depends. That is Monday to Friday. First, the lifeguard must go through 1, 2, 3 examinations. In total, 5 examinations.
Okay.
Which would include first aid, CPR, swimming, the life-saving skills, before he could then proceed to be a lifeguard.
Okay.
Example, for instance, people like Carter or Boville are not trained with the lifeguard skills.
Okay, understood. What is the sufficient amount of lifeguards that are needed on any given day to be able to properly, service and oversee beachgoers?
Right. A lifeguard job is demanding. It is physical. A lifeguard technically is an athlete. For a lifeguard to make a rescue, first he has to run like bulls, then he has to hurdle over the waves like Garcia, then swim like Bmobile or Carter. And then when he reaches that victim, he has to fight for his life for survival, because that person who is drowning doesn't care who it is. They just want to survive.
Right.
Then that lifeguard then has to bring that person back to shore. Then he may have to do CPR. Lack of equipment, lack of gears, that lifeguard who's doing CPR, who might be just barefoot in a short pants and a jersey, may have to go to the hospital with that patient.
Right.
Which is not the attire to go to a hospital. Now, in terms of equipment, the lifeguard has no equipment really to work with. Example, the lifeguards went across to the Ministry of National Security in 2015 with 13 vehicles, including 3 ambulances. To date, there are no ambulances, and you have 1 vehicle working, and that is operating in the ministry to drop documents from point A to point B. So in terms of equipment, the lifeguards have been asking for things like jet skis to keep up with the modern day lifeguards.
Right. I want to ask you, I want to ask you a question, because you're telling us about all the challenges that, the lifeguards are experiencing. And I think I need to ask, has this shortage of manpower and equipment always been the case? Or did something significant happen that caused this?
As I was saying, what you have had is an aging lifeguard service. The youngest lifeguard is over 30. Over 10, 15 years, the ministry has not employed people, despite the fact, over 10 years ago, they took on a training program where we have trained close to 60 people who have passed their exams to come into the service, and they have not employed any of those people. Okay. And you have lifeguards leaving the service annually because of retirement or who unfortunately died. So those people are leaving, and there's no replacement for them.
Okay. Is there a union or anybody that could represent the lifeguards, to kind of seek answers, to get the support, the manpower, start hiring on behalf of the lifeguards?
The union, the union that represents the lifeguard is NUGFW.
Right.
Right. And we would have had, up to the latest of 2012, would have requested documents to go to cabinet to increase the cadre of the lifeguards because it's insufficient.
Okay. What is your status on that request to date?
Nothing. As I said, the lifeguard service was dumped in the Ministry of National Security in 2015, and the service has been abandoned. Nothing has been done to improve the service.
Okay.
As I said, CPEP is more organized than the lifeguard service.
I want to go back a bit to beachgoers. So we know that the Met Office recently issued a hazardous seas alert, right? Yellow level for Tuesday.
We're still under that.
Right, correct. We're still under that from Tuesday, 28th of February to the 6th of March. Now, in that alert that they issued, they talk about the northerly long period of swells that has been observed on the coastal areas of Tobago, as well as the northern eastern parts and some western parts of the coastal areas of Trinidad. The instruction that came along with this issue is that, all marine interests should look carefully and monitor the near shoreline, the conditions, as well as avoid marine activities. In cases like this where something like this is issued from the Met Office, does this include beachgoers as well?
If it includes what?
If it includes people who are going to the beach to bathe in the beach.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, example.
Yes.
You have the rough water season. The rough water season starts in October
and
ends somewhere in March. March into April. So those periods of time are the most dangerous times to be at the beach. It sounds a little thing, but those are the period of time you would have bigger waves,
right,
stronger rip currents, and it becomes more dangerous for members of the public.
Right.
Those are the period of time then. Like, for instance, example, the carnival period, you would have had majority of the police out, they increase their patrols and all these things. In the lifeguard service, it's just an ordinary day. According to the administrators, there's nothing that is being put in place.
Right. So I asked that because my next question is, in instances such as this, what happens when beachgoers do show up? You know, there's a warning saying to avoid marine activity, beachgoers still show up to the beach. You know, I know that you talk about the shortage of lifeguards. So are there lifeguards that are present there to discourage beachgoers? Are there bulletins or signs posted so that beachgoers understand, avoid the water? What happens in instances like that?
Signage, there's very little in terms of signage. All those were things that the lifeguard would have asked to be put in place. The other thing is, the lifeguard has no authority because of the present structure. The lifeguard has no authority to stop anyone from going into the water. There is no security for the lifeguard. The most lifeguards can do is persuade and encourage people not to go, not to do this. And a lot of the times, people just ignore the lifeguard.
Okay. And in terms of the accessibility for the public to information on the lifeguards, is there a hotline number? Is there websites? I know you mentioned the issues that you're experiencing, and we really hope that that could be sorted soonest, you know, because it's of great importance both to the lifeguards and to the general public. But is there a website? Is there a Facebook page? Is there a contact number that the general public can use to get in touch with the association if there be any issues, if they need to find out anything? Is there anything of that nature that's in place?
There's no hotline.
Okay. So how do persons get information or anything?
Sorry. There's no hotline. If anyone needs information, have to call the Ministry of National Security.
Okay.
And we know what is the position in reaching these ministries. But prior to that, there were an education wing in the lifeguard service.
Right.
Where that education wing would have gone around to schools, groups, organizations, teach, advise, do PowerPoint presentations informing these groups of the dangers of water, open waterway, the sea home river or whatever lake.
Right.
That has now been dismantled because of the same short staff. Because you need all the manpower you have on the beaches. So that has been dismantled. That same educational wing would have gone around places like doing water safety and training people in the defense force, whether it be police, fire, and all these things. Besides that, schools, tour group, you name it.
Right.
Insurance company, other ministries. But that group has been dismantled because of the short staff.
Okay. Mr. Sylvester, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. You were able to raise a lot of points about the shortage that's being experienced over time. I really hope that, you know, this is rectified as soon as possible. It's important, even in terms of the caravan that will go around educating persons on water safety and the lifeguard and so on. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time this morning. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we have more.
Know the signs of fraudulent investment. Follow the ABCs of investing. Ask questions. Beware of investment fraud. And check with the Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission first to verify that the individual and investment are registered. Protect you and your loved ones from investment fraud.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Thank you for staying with us. We have now joining us via Zoom the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross. And for those of you who've always wanted to know more about the Red Cross, how can you get involved? How can you volunteer? What does the Red Cross do? We have Mr. Augustus Ford, First Aid and Ambulance Coordinator, and Stefan Kishore, Crisis Coordinator, on the line with us. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Dominic. Good morning, and thank you so much.
Okay, nice. So I have to find out, for those who are wondering about the Red Cross, who is the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross and why is the Red Cross necessary? And Mr. Ford, you can answer that one.
Now, who is the Red Cross? If I didn't show there. So, the Red Cross is a voluntary organization, one, but it is what we call an auxiliary to the humanitarian field of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And in that case, we provide a service, let's say, in the area of disaster preparedness. We can do that. If the institution on the line, we do that. We have, of course, our focuses really and truly on community development, community management, along those lines. So that's what the Red Cross is all about. We have two branches, three branches, South Tobago, and of course, here, North Branch, and our headquarters.
Okay.
So it is an organization that provides this service for our community.
Okay. And Mr. Kishore, damage management is a major focus of the organization. Walk us through exactly what that entails for the Red Cross.
Okay, so that's disaster management.
Sorry, disaster management.
Yeah, and disaster management is a sort of a misnomer for us in Trinidad, because when you think about the last time we had a major disaster, you're thinking about back in the 1970s when we had those hurricanes impacting, northern part of Trinidad and Tobago. But that's why my title has been changed to crisis management, because we tend to see those more often, even as we're coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We would have seen, smaller crises happening in different sectors. We had a crisis in the economic sector, we had a crisis in livelihoods. So we tend to deal with crises more often. Now, more than 95% of our time is spent on community resilience building, which is a big part of disaster management, if you want to go back to that term.
Right.
Where we want to make sure that, as Mr. Ford said, we deal with the vulnerable populations in Trinidad and Tobago. We deal with those who most need the services. Now, as an auxiliary, we have to work closely with our state partners, mostly our partners within the disaster management units in Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government.
Right.
And of course, at the national level, we have ODPM and TEMA. And we work with them to build resilience, because we want to make sure that communities would not need any support after an incident.
Right.
And that's really at the heart of resilience, right? Where communities are able to bounce back or respond to that emergency or crisis using the resources that they have.
Right.
So that means a lot of capacity building. So we work with a lot of community groups, with a lot of youth groups. We work with the population who needs the support, the vulnerable populations, to make sure that they are prepared.
Okay.
So we have our flagship program, which is our Community Emergency Response Team program, where we go in and we build a response team in the community. So if an emergency happens, there's a resource that exists there in the community already, and that they don't need to wait for outside help. Because we've never seen any major sort of disaster happen where communities are really isolated. Help could come somehow. The roads and bridges might be washed away, but you could send resources on a boat. You could send resources via air. But we've never had a community so cut off that, no resources could come. And that's why we want to make sure we're preparing communities for that big event that could happen. Right. Most of our incidents are caused by hydrometeorological incidents as a result of climate change. We're getting more and more of these types of frequent flooding. So, every 3 years we're getting one of these major flooding events that is causing a lot of damage, and need thousands of people needing to apply for grants and things like that.
Yes.
And that's just the start of it. In the next 5 years, we could be seeing, more than 50% of the population being affected. And in the next 10 years, almost the entire population being affected. And it really only takes one major storm or hurricane to come through and affect the entire population. And we will see that happening more with climate change. So that's why it's now part of our fundamental programming that we do a lot of environmental awareness. People need to know the climate is changing. People need to know that there is going to be a major incident. The God is a Trini culture, can't exist, for much longer, because we're going to get impacted, and people are going to see they need to really take preparedness seriously as a culture.
Yes, I'm really glad you said that. And I want us to continue this. We're going to stick a pin, we're going to go to news, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about the programs that the Red Cross has, all right? We'll go to news, we'll be back shortly.
to your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Tobago Fisherfolk calls for gas rebate. PDP leader announces bid for the position of Mayor of Port of Spain. Tobago Festivals Commission says better planning necessary for hosting events. And internationally, protests erupt in Nigeria following election results. Now for the details. Vice President of the All Tobago Fisherfolk Association, Junior Kwashi, says Tobago fisherfolk continue to struggle with the cost of gas. Speaking with Tobago Channel 5, he explained that there must be a gas rebate or the cost of fish, especially within the Lenten season, would be significantly increased.
If we had to check what we really going through in Tobago, fish price will go up. That if and but because the whole chain link, right? Gas rebate, no. VAT, no. Grocery, yes. All that is lead us into this where we are, right? And the decision that we does make is what does affect us in Tobago, not by Tobagonian, by Trinidad central government.
PDP leader Watson Duke has announced his bid for the position of Mayor of Port of Spain. He made the announcement via his Facebook page on Tuesday.
This is Watson Duke. I am the PDP candidate for mayorship, Port of Spain, and I'm downtown today in East Dry River. We're going to be dealing with some issues today, walking around a little bit to see what's happening.
Tobago Festivals Commission CEO John Arnold says moving forward there should be better planning processes when hosting events. This comment comes after several recently concluded carnival events saw late starts and other issues experienced by patrons. Arnold weighed in on the issues via WESN's Talking Point.
We've got to adhere to best practice because what we want at the outcome is a successful event. And I'm saying if one of the criteria is that we want to know when we look back at the KPIs, one of the things is we want a successful event. One of the things is we started it on time. What does it take to start the thing on time? Planning.
In international news now, protests take place outside the Collation Center in the Nigerian capital of Abuja. 3 opposition parties allege widespread rigging, calling it a sham election. Earlier, ex-President Obasanjo issued a warning about the poll results. Ruling party candidate Bola Tinubu has 44% of the vote thus far. A candidate needs 25% of votes in 2/3 of these, as well as having the most votes. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for staying with us. We are talking to the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross, and we were just being told of all of the programs that they have in communities, making sure that communities are able to take care of themselves in the face of a disaster that happens. That they don't have to wait on help to come in if there's a need for immediate help. So tell us about any other programs that the Red Cross would have, Mr. Kishore.
Right, Dominic. So in terms of the continued program, so in terms of community resilience building, we really take a package to the community because we walk something called a roadmap to resilience with the community. So it really starts with community assessments, and that's one of the fundamental areas that we want to ensure communities know about their vulnerabilities and their capacities. Right? Communities really need to understand their risks that they're exposed to, and that goes into that mapping exercise that we do with them. So we teach communities how to identify vulnerabilities. And through that process of the roadmap to resilience, we show them how to use the capacities that exist in the community. Because sometimes the community thinks that they need to always get outside help to respond, but they don't really look at what resources that they may have. So the shops in the community, the skilled labor force that they may have, the doctors, the nurses, the carpenters, the people with the heavy equipment, the people with the chainsaw, that may exist in the community. So if a tree has fallen and they're trapped, they don't need to necessarily wait for a response team to come from the outside, if they're able to mobilize resources from the inside and use that capacity that they have,
right,
to move the tree so that they can get out and get the help that they may need.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. Mr. Ford, tell us about the first aid program, because I know that that's really crucial to the work that you do locally. So tell us about that program, what is the goal, and how persons can access training.
Well, the first aid program, so let's roll back the tape a little. Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society has been in this country for the past 87 years.
Okay.
So since that period, we have been providing first aid service to the community. So it is something that, again, when it comes to first aid, when you hear Red Cross, what's supposed to hear, the next thing that comes after that in many cases is first aid. So we provide that first aid service for most of the people. This organization, what we have really and truly is that, again, our first aid program is, again, a top class program. Right now, we have a 1-year program that's, again, between the 8 to 4. Person can access it right now through on the website at ttrcs.org. You go into our first aid program, you can sign up for the program, all the information there. We do first aid, we do which is first aid, CPR, AED programs for the adult and also for the child. We have the pediatric programs also. We have psychological first aid. We have wilderness first aid. We're getting into also the emergency medical response training program. We train instructors and we get them all ready again for this thing. So should there be a disaster, because what we realize in today's world, a lot of persons need first aid. Now first aid really and truly, we look it down as common sense.
Right.
But again, the information is very, very important to everybody. So whether you're at school, at work, at play, you need to have basic first aid. One of our aim really and truly is to have first aid in every household, in every household in community. Somebody should have, again, some information on first aid as to what to do, how we can save our lives before the ambulance system come into place, before anything like that. We need to make sure that people know first aid. So we encourage persons. We have, again, a community-based first aid program that we can give to certain communities. These programs, of course, again, there's a cost to some of these, but based on, I think, for instance, what Stefan is doing with the disaster programs, we, of course, could share some information to people with people concerning first aid. So it is something that we do, again. So once you want to do a course, you can just go online at, as I said, ttrcs.org. You go online there, you click on first aid, you can register whether you have a program in Trinidad or in Tobago. Meaning whether you have one in the north side or whether you have in the south side, you can do that. The cost is $500 at present. So let me just share it with you also, because again, pretty soon we're going to be moving up to $650. And of course, we encourage everybody. So you have a window between now and let's say the 13th of this month or towards that day, where you can again pay $500 to do a first aid training program. It is good for you and the entire family.
Okay, I think that's really important because we take for granted, you know, understanding and having a first aid kit and knowing how to use these things. Only when there's an emergency that happens, then we realize how important it is. Talk to us, Mr. Kishore, about the other health aspect of the Red Cross, and in particular, the Henry Dunant Clinic.
Right, so our Henry Dunant Clinic was born out of a desire to ensure that there was accessibility of healthcare to everyone, right? So we would have understood a lot of vulnerable persons just because of how our healthcare system operates. There's a lot of, wait time. Persons aren't able to go and queue up for, 2 hours to be able to see a doctor. So we would have looked at data over the many years that we've been in existence and say, what are some of the gaps in healthcare? And that's how we were able to design an intervention to create the Henry Dunant Clinic. So the clinic is a basic primary healthcare clinic that operates in our headquarters at Port of Spain. And in September of last year, we would have opened our satellite clinic in our Tobago branch in Signal Hill, Tobago. So the clinic operates based on need. And we look at what some of the gaps are in terms of what specialities. And we've been getting specialists to come in and fill those gaps. So if you're a diabetic and you need to see a specialist for that, we're able to, get a set of registrations for persons to get that specialty. And then we get a doctor who's a specialist. And then we want to expand the service now to offer more things like diagnostic tests like ECGs, ultrasound, so that persons could come in and get a full service rather than get a referral to go to a public health care facility to wait for diagnostic test and then come back. So it's part of the dream to expand and be able to offer more services and, add other things like dispensary services so that you can, this could be a extension of the public healthcare system.
Right, I love that. Now, we can't talk about the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross without talking about the Kiddies Carnival, because the Red Cross has been very instrumental in this happening. Mr. Ford, talk to us about this partnership and that every year for Carnival we look forward to this. Talk to us about how this even began.
Right. Well, the Red Cross Children's Carnival, which we tend to call it for the love of children.
Right.
What are the Kiddies Carnival? I don't people say Kiddies Carnival, but the Kiddies Carnival already had a name prior to about different. But in 1956, we had again a carnival. You had there, well, even prior to that, you had carnival. Before that, we had the Kiddies Carnival kind of thing. At one time, the Guardian newspaper, they ran a program along those lines. And again, what we saw 67 years ago is that it needs to have something for the Red Cross Children's Carnival as a fundraiser and to generate not only that, but again, to get the young people interested in certain things. So from that period, we have had the Red Cross Children's Carnival. In the initial stages, it was called because Mr. Aubrey Adams, again, he was instrumental in putting things in place also with the governors that we had at the time. And of course, what it did is to put a program together in Queen's Park Savannah. So we have been at the Queen's Park Savannah for the past 67 years. We have again engaged children from not only North Trinidad, but also from South Trinidad, three part and parcel. It is one, again, the most, as a growing show, and is a stage show. But what we've seen, of course, again, when a lot of persons, yes, there are a lot of schools will go to the Saturday, which is the Kiddies Carnival, that have changed names. I think it's called NCT right now.
Yes.
But the Red Cross Children's Carnival is a stage show. It is one where we encourage a lot of persons, a lot of giveaways, a lot of different things for people, and also different educational programs that help that. So it is a good staple for us in more ways than one. With the fund that come out of it, we can again assist in different communities. We do a lot of different things with it to help people. So we always encourage people that, again, the 2 Saturdays prior to the carnival, you have the Red Cross Children's Carnival, and there's something we encourage persons to come and, of course, partake of. And again, bring the children. We've seen, again, the new designers that are coming up. And because of that, there's, again, an outshoot of it, which is called, again, the V65. It is a program that, again, encouraged young designers to do different things like that. So about 2-3 years ago, well, during the COVID period, you had them designing different costumes on dolls.
Okay.
The stand it's 2023. There's a different concepted, whereas again they're going to be designing, for adults or young people.
Nice.
So that, again, they of themselves, the designers and the young designers, we had again from early ages, 7, 8 going up, and they now can design their own costume that they can put on. And of course, that competition is will be coming up probably in the next couple of months. Talk about the V65 Carnival.
Okay, that's really good. And as we wrap, how can persons volunteer with the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross, as well as tell us more about the More Than a Sign campaign that's happening?
So to volunteer is very simple. We have an online system where you can go onto our website, ttrcs.org/volunteer. And you fill out our form, and then you're contacted virtually to do an orientation. And through that orientation, we get to see your strengths and the needs that you're able to fill within our organization. So you learn about the different departments, and you see where it's best fit. And of course, there's a lot of training that comes with volunteering. So if you're interested and you have time, give back time to the organization, and that ties directly into our We're More Than a Sign. So I mean, as an organization who carries its name, the Red Cross, people always think of us and associate us with what you see, right? You see Red Cross as a sign of help, as a sign of first aid, as the sign on the ambulance. But we're more than that, right? As you've learned today, we have a lot of programs that a lot of people don't really know about, and really how we make impact into communities. So our We're More Than a Sign campaign is our flagship fundraising campaign for this year, where we have a very ambitious goal of getting public donations, either in cash or in time, by September, we want to raise at least $1 million in funds so that we're able to drive that community programming. Because you've seen there's a lot of gaps that exist, and we are the ones that tend to want to fill those gaps, really, because we know what's the issues in these communities, especially the vulnerable populations that we deal with. So if you're willing to donate, you have several ways to donate. You can get a lot of information on our website and our social media platforms, but you could come into us, make a cash donation that way. You could sign up on our website to be a volunteer. We'll share more information. You'll see more about the campaign coming out on social media and traditional media pretty soon about the other ways that you're able to donate. And we're calling on everybody, corporate TNT, to be part of this campaign so that you could all see where you can make a part to be the difference in the communities that we serve.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us this morning. All the best with all the initiatives, including the campaign that's coming up. All right, thank you. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we have more.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WASN,
the content capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Okay, for our final interview today, we are going to be talking about cyber attacks and the fact that it has increased over the period of time. We would have just come out of the pandemic where we were heavily dependent on technology, and as much as there's advancements in technology and there's good happening, there's also space for negative things to happen. And so we've seen where there's cyber attacks happening. To tell us more about this, we have Mr. Renanzo, who is joining us. He's the South English Caribbean Territory Manager for Schneider Electric. Welcome.
Thank you, Dominic. A pleasure to be here, and then thank you for having me. As you mentioned, the pandemic accelerated the adoption of technology, right? Digitalization, as well as automation of processes and tasks within different businesses, industrial service sectors, and so on. 2 years later, we're still are still generating cyber alerts for cyber crimes, which, according to the data, increased an astonishing 600%, right, in this health crisis during COVID. I'll give you a couple of statistics here.
Right.
It is estimated that last year were 289 billion cyber threats affected in Latin America, meaning that each of the 667 inhabitants has been subjected to an average of 430 attacks in the year, right? So that's pretty much more than one per day, right? For example, in the first half in 2022, the Caribbean experienced 144 million cyber attempts, right? With ransomware being one of the most popular, the most common breach, right? As you know, ransomware is a type of malware from cryptovirology that threatens to publish the victim's personal data or perpetually block all access to it unless they receive a ransom paid, right? So cybercrime is here and is constantly evolving. Attackers are attentive at latest trends, just like us, and technologies to hook the largest number of victims, right? With attacks that often involve a lot of actions, right? And the aim to make at least one successful one. Right? In addition, they have gone from being basic and massive, volume attacks to more complex and selective, which tells you that cyber criminals are fine-tuning their tactics and procedures to be more efficient with their goal. Yep.
How can companies, based on all that you said, and with this experience on cyber attacks and how they themselves are advancing in what they're doing, how can companies manage cybersecurity risks without jeopardizing their technology? And does the size and maturity of the company matter in this instance?
Well, it's not really relevant. For example, in the last 2 years, companies across all industries, right, have migrated a lot of their processes, equipment, machinery, and maintenance controls to smart systems connected to the IoT, the Internet of Things, right, to cloud networks. However, when making this migration, parameters and security systems must be considered to prevent an attacker from taking advantage of this multi-channel platform. Right, the way for a company to manage, to kind of mitigate this cybersecurity risk would be first assessment of potential vulnerabilities and attack indicators, and the definition of a remediation approach, right, which may include technologies, processes, and actually people for the identified critical business risk. Also implement targeted protection for the most sensitive corporate assets, right, that a company has, by ensuring the right organization, technology, and people, again, I emphasize on people, are in place to avoid any lasting impact on quality service provided to the customer. So business continuity, right? Implementation of internal cybersecurity capabilities to mitigate those identifiable vulnerabilities, and lastly, implementation of frequent third-party security ratings and assessments, so firmware updates and so on.
Right. And tell us about the risk management and the strategies that companies will now have to adopt to ensure cybersecurity based on that.
Sure. As you know, as the adoption of smart building technologies increase, so does the need for a more defined approach to cybersecurity. Right. Without such strategy, both facility operations and the connected networks could face significant risk. This requires a more of a hands-on approach and effective strategy to manage this cybersecurity risk mitigations. Right. Here at Schneider Electric, we have been able to identify five essential attributes of a risk management strategy to ensure cybersecurity. First, consider organizational governance, right? Effective cyber risk management that starts with the executive level, awareness and commitment, so all the way to the high level, all the way to the bottom. You need to establish also a robust cybersecurity framework and standards. These can act as guides to ensure that important safety issues are not overlooked, right? And then third, we need to collect accurate information. Data analytics is key, right? Implementing a cybersecurity strategy requires a detailed understanding of potential threats and critical building assets. More of like get to know your enemy in a way, right? Also proper implementation of protection technologies, right? Identifying and implementing solutions addressed specifically at the stages of a cyber threat, right? Which includes protection, detection, a response, and recovery of this require Of course, this requires a more of a systematic approach, but those three key: protection, detection, response, and recovery. And finally, have an adaptive incident response plans on hand, right? Not everything's going to work, right? Any comprehensive strategy must address what happens if a plan elements fail to prevent a successful security breach. So pretty much have a backup plan in place. Yes.
Cyber security practices.
Correct. This is correct. Sorry, you got cut off at the end.
Yeah. All right. And finally, before we wrap, what advice would you give to the local business community here? You know, based on these cyber attacks that are happening, how can they safeguard locally? Can they get in contact with your company, whether it's for consultation, for advice? What is the procedure?
Sure. Taking a single holistic approach to cybersecurity, and this again is applicable to any size of company, to improve how companies detect and mitigate and respond to a cybersecurity is very challenging. Even larger enterprises struggle to maintain the complex mix of systems, networks, and security applications, especially from different vendors, right? And some of which are managed in different platforms also. This can be costly and time consuming and limits their ability to adapt to a dynamic nature, which is cybersecurity. Here at Schneider Electric, we offer a couple key recommendations to promote within your company an effective adoption of cybersecurity, right? You need to establish a cultural mindset that embraces cybersecurity. So integrate cybersecurity into the employee life cycle. So from its conception, from hiring and onboarding to employee development, planning, education, awareness, right? Implementing security controls to align with best practices and standards. When it comes to the technology that is already in place in the company, always make sure you have implemented aspects such as network segmentation, endpoint protection, central authentication, and other best practices. And then finally, choose the right solution for your unique environment, right? Cybersecurity is not a one size fits all, right? Work with your suppliers to understand exactly what you need. For example, Schneider Electric cybersecurity consultants, in my case, we provide simple, scalable solutions to target priority assets and risk with a console to visualize the risk, right? And this would be our EcoStructure software solution, right? Which targets all these cyber risk. This is our open, interoperable, compatible IoT-enabled system architecture and platform. It basically powers advances in the areas of IoT, mobility, sensing, cloud environments, analytics, and cybersecurity, right? We do this so we can empower the customer, and it makes total control of the operation of the company, plant or factory, whatever it may be. If there's a computer with any vulnerability, the same platform detects and it can turn it off to avoid any risk. We ensure business continuity by leading secure environmental monitoring, management, insights, planning, and modeling. From a single IT rack to a hyperscale IT, right? And we can do this either on-prem or on the cloud. So in our case, we offer EcoStructure. Again, this we can apply it in the security side of the business with cameras, with sensors, and also on the planning and modeling side. Sorry, Dominic, you got cut off there, and I apologize. My apologies, Dominic, but you got cut off at the end, so I did not hear a sound. If you guys need more information, so I'll go ahead and take the liberty. If you guys need more information, you can always reach me at Jaime, Jaime, .Reynoso, Reinoso, at se.com. Again, I'm the key point of contact in Trinidad. So any questions, any demos you guys need, feel free to contact me, and I'll be glad to help you.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate all of the information that you've given us.
Great. Thank you, Dominic, for the invite, and